There's something that I always appreciated about Eastern wisdom, and I think it was just that everybody always came back from so-called enlightenment saying the same thing. They experienced themselves apart from their body. There was usually light involved, and then this description of nothingness or vastness. And those ingredients were always the same. They were expressed a bit differently, but there was consistency, and there was this idea that it was able to be experienced while living. And perhaps the engineer in me really appreciated the fact that there were these forms of evidence that would potentially show me if I'd reached this point. And through grace, 2.5 years ago, when I met Sri Muji, I kind of experienced all of those things within the span of a couple of days. And amazingly, the experiences were so transformative that I had the feeling that they were real. And even with all of that experience and that evidence, that moment, or those moments, those days, really planted a seed that I expected to bloom immediately, but even over the course of 2.5 years, I feel there was just a deepening of all of those experiences, probably as my personal mind tries to understand and conceptualize that experience and put it into words, which is so impossible, because how do you express that you experienced yourself as kind of a speck in the vastness of everything, but you were also that vastness? It just doesn't sound logical. And so I think over these past 2.5 years, living on the island has really helped me to come to a place of stillness and silence where I can reflect on those teachings and even watch more of Sri Muji's satsangs and his talks, because I'm just amazed how he's able to take the person who's asking the question at exactly the place that they are and point them always to the same place in various different ways. And there's something that's really profound about that type of teacher who can shed light in that way, always pointing to the same place. So in my own experiences, as I deepen in my own understandings, I have these moments sometimes where an everyday thing connects me to a deeper lesson. And I thought I would record such an example for perhaps my own memory. And if anyone can take something from this sharing, that's even cooler. But here on the island, a lot of the plumbing and the connectors of things are very different than they are in America. And a lot of times I don't want to bother them, because I think if I break this, I have no idea who to find or where I could find this part. So there's a resistance to trying to fix some things. Other things, I just fix it on my own. But one of those things was my bathroom sink. And it had been kind of backing up, and the water would take a long time to drain. And so I have these needle nose pliers that came in one of my packages from America that I would use to kind of take some hair that had collected in the sink, and that would usually fix the problem for about a week. But in this past week, I had this experience of trying to fix it with the pliers, and it just wasn't working. The sink was backing up, and I would just kind of pass it by, trying to ignore it because I didn't want to deal with it. I'd see this water pooled in the sink for days, and I was washing my face in the shower and just kind of avoiding the sink altogether. But after 2 or 3 days of that, it got to be a little ridiculous. I'm like, okay, I probably need to fix this. And then I started smelling kind of a mold, and I was like, okay, this can't be good. So today I finally decided that I was going to put my engineering hat on and just try to approach the sink. And if I broke something, I broke it, I'd fix it. And I kind of went down behind the sink and found that there was this plastic pipe that connected to the wall. And so I just decided, okay, let me just try to take that off. And I did, and it worked. And within the piping, I saw probably like years of collection of hair and sediment. And I realized, oh my God, like no matter how much I use those needle nose pliers, I would never, ever, ever fix the true root of the problem because it was within this system that I couldn't see. And so I took the time to clean everything fully, wiped everything down, reattached it all, amazingly worked great. The water has never flowed so smoothly. And now I have a new confidence that if that problem should happen again, I know how to truly fix it. I know how to go to the root and correct it. So when I thought about this experience, I was, reflecting, and the sink to me started to represent the mind. And our minds are often so full of sediment. Our thoughts, our memories, it could be trauma, it could even be celebratory things that were key moments in how we define our person and what we think of as ourselves. Our mind is just full. And so like my sink, all of that collected sediment means that there's no space for anything to drain. The water is just pooling, and then in the midst of all those thoughts and those worries and those fears, in this collected water, it starts to smell, right? It's this mold. It's this lack of clear flow for things to be eliminated from our system. They get stuck. And so we hear this concept of being of no mind, of letting go of the mind, and it sounds really daunting. It's like, how do I let go of my mind? How do I drop my mind? How will I be able to function? How will I be able to think? It's like me not wanting to take apart the sink. What if I break it? How will I function? What will I do? Until I finally reached a moment where I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do it. In the same way, if we approach the act of being of no mind and just clean everything out by not trying to systematically eliminate each memory. It's not like I was, taking out each individual hair that was caught in my sink. It's a washing of everything all at once that really creates that space and that openness and that clarity and the ability to allow for flow. And how you do this is something that I couldn't really conceptualize until Sri Muji shared the invitation. And the invitation is something I've tried to record and capture. I think going to him as the source is probably the best way. But it's this concept of imagining yourself just leaving your mind at the door for a moment. It's not this grand experiment of living without your mind. It's just for a moment that you lay down all of these thoughts and worries and fears and all the things that you think about as yourself, your past, your worries about your future, your family, your moments, everything. You just leave it at the door for a moment. And you go through this experience of imagining yourself walking into a cabin in the woods where you're meeting this master with your mind at the door, all of those things left behind. And you walk into the room and imagine yourself being kind of above this cabin, looking down into the cabin. And it's, what do you see? And when I went through that experience, I just saw tremendous light. And I just saw this light being created from light, going back into light. It was just this play of light. It was amazing. It was beautiful. And I experienced that light as the light of creation. And so that experience for me was so profound. But what took it to the next level was the question, what is seeing that light? And trying to take it to that next level was something I couldn't capture immediately, right? It was like you imagine something, but then it's not, your mind is trying to conceptualize something that's not there. And then finally I really had this experience of myself as vastness, as that space, that emptiness that just went on forever. And through that moment, I knew that there was something that was so real about that. And because of Sri Muji and the way that he does the invitation, it was confirmed through the experience of others. I mean, we were all having the same kind of experience. We were seeing the same types of things. And that doesn't just happen by accident. Truth is truth. And the experience of truth has a consistency about it. So getting back to the sink, when you wash your mind of everything and you let go of this idea that you're not going to be able to function if you don't have the mind, you have this freedom and this space where you can experience this tremendous flow, this flow of existence. It's just like now my sink, the flow of water is just pure. Like I turn it on, it's gone. There's no pooling, there's no collection, there's no sediment. And as we deepen in that understanding of the experience of no mind, there is more flow in our lives. It's not that things always happen exactly as we want or that we're able to predict the future. There's just this let go in this space and and maybe even an understanding that the things that are happening to get you closer to identifying your true self. It's like your self wants to be known. And so all of these things that look like barriers and problems are actually markers. They're pointers to keep you going into a deeper level of understanding. And sometimes, that process of awakening feels painful, right? It's not something we want to experience. But in hindsight, we can look back and say, oh my gosh, that experience really allowed me to move past this thing or understand this thing or let go of that thing. And through that continuous process, we're washing out that sink. We're getting rid of those layers. And if you want to just bypass all of that, you do this power wash of dropping your mind. And it's like, it just happens. And for me, I think it started with questions. And as I started experiencing this more and thinking about this more, I wrote about it. And my books, I think, reflect a bit of my own journey. And the questions were the starting point. And the questions really are designed, not just my questions, but questions, are designed to make you think about what you're experiencing in a new way and start you to questioning if you're putting up limitations on yourself. So as I think about all of these things and deepen in my own understanding, and as you deepen in your own understanding, I think there is a tremendous opportunity to see all of our moments, our daily moments and our daily activities as rich with lessons. There's so many lessons in everything. And as you deepen in your own practice and have some of these experiences and try to conceptualize them and understand them, know that the mind is not really going to be able to process it, right? It's not designed for the mind, because the mind is a tool for this personal body that we need. The mind tells us when we need to eat and that, we need to move our bodies and all of the things that we need to care for this vessel. The mind helps us to dictate those things, but it's necessarily limited, because if we had full experience of everything that was happening around us, we would be overwhelmed in this personal vessel. So it is only through transcending this limiting factor that we're able to experience the vastness that we truly are. And being in this vessel is a way to experience. The body is a mode of experience, but it's not truly who we are. It's just like you can say my shirt or my watch. We also say my body. Whose body is it? It's like you are the spirit and the light that inhabits this vessel. And because we have this tremendous ability to think and to experience all these phenomenal things as humans and communicate, we can have this deeper experience of an understanding of what this experience is, which is a truly powerful thing. It's a wonderful thing, but it's incredibly confusing. So I hope that as you go through your practice and you think about this idea of mind and thoughts and, all the things that the masters say that we have to let go of and recognize it's not us. It's just getting to this point that we have to power wash all of that out to be open for the light that is within us and the vastness that we are, that the light exists within. And conceptually, it's like, how do you make sense of that? You can't. But through the experience of taking away the mind and who you think you are and your story and all of those things, you can create space to be open to the full dropping of everything. And that is what I wish for you, that peace and that joy and that just freedom, the freedom that comes from not being constrained by all of the things that in our personal state we typically feel constrained by. And those are a limiting factor that's part of the body experience, this vessel that we have. And I just encourage you to check different sources. If you are a follower of Sri Muji, that's amazing. Check out Sri Maharaj, or if you're inspired by Eckhart Tolle or other masters, read their experiences, listen to their experiences. Papaji, Sri Ramana Maharshi, like those masters, they're all pointing at the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing in different ways. And that's something that's really, I find is really powerful. Even if you look at some Native American or indigenous wisdom, it's the same thing. The great beyond, Taoism, Lao Tzu, the Tao, or Tao, however you'd like to say it. Those things, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. Like there's a consistency in the message, and through those paths, it's all pointing to the same place. And the mind bend is that place is you, and it's hard to comprehend with the mind. And that is why the mind has to be, I think, actually impossible to comprehend with the mind. So the mind has to be taken out of the equation to have these experiences. And then when we're living this personal experience, we have a much more open and tremendous idea of our true nature as being infinite, that all of these cares and these worries, these things, just we're able to allow them to flow and see the unreality of it all, the Maya, the illusion of it all. And I think that is the beauty of the experiences that I've been blessed by grace to have. And as I continue to deepen into my own experiences and allow them to root, it just flowers more and more. And I'm so thankful. So I just feel inspired to try to share these moments as I'm deepening my own understanding, to not only be a memory for me, but perhaps an inspiration for you. So I wish you peace and blessings and freedom and peace and joy. All of these things are you. Namaste.